It's my pleasure to start off today by introducing the managing partner of Stubbs Alderton Markleys, Scott Alderton, and he's a person that doesn't need a lot of introduction because he's been around the block a couple of times, but he is an awesome person to work with. I've worked with Scott from the outside, and now I'm working with Scott on the inside, and he's just as wonderful on both sides of that equation. So it's my pleasure to introduce Scott. Scott?
There you go. Thank you very much, Lynn. Appreciate it. Appreciate the introduction. I see a lot of familiar faces. I miss you all very, very much. I can't wait till we are allowed to be in a room together and do this non-virtually, but I think it's an amazing tribute to Len and the leadership in the Preccelerator that we're able to put this event together and move on virtually. Just to sort of fill in some blanks in case you all are not aware, the Preccelerator did not shut down as a result of COVID. We did lock the doors for a while, but the program has continued apace, and in fact, we have, I think, the most amazing group of cohorts in it right now that we've ever seen, one of whom you'll be hearing from. Well, I mean, you'll be hearing from many of them tonight, but one new one you'll be hearing from tonight. It's a very exciting company. Another one you'll hear from next demo day, which is a very exciting company. But things are going great, and we are progressing along to develop and nurture companies and be a part of the ecosystem, and we're proud to be doing that. So I appreciate very much you guys all joining us and being a part of this. It's great that we can continue to do it. We're going to have a really exciting fireside chat with Jason Nazar, who's an old friend and a fixture in the ecosystem, and I think you'll find that very enjoyable. And you're going to hear from some of our cohort companies that are old and some that are new. And without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to my colleague Kelly Laffey and let her describe to you what's about to happen. So thank you. It's great to see you all, and I can't wait till I can shake your hand or actually even hug you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Laffey. I am a senior counsel at Stubbs Alderton and Markleys, and I'm also the director of business affairs at the Preccelerator. Welcome to our first virtual demo day. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the Preccelerator itself. As many of you probably know, Stubbs Alderton and Markleys is a full-service law firm. We specialize in representing startup, emerging growth companies and middle market companies from the very beginning of their life to the end of their life cycle, and particularly in representing them in raising financing. We are thrilled to provide the Preccelerator resources as an additional service to the Silicon Beach community. I've been involved with the Preccelerator now for 4 years. We've been cycling through a great slate of companies, and they just keep getting better and better. To the extent you don't know, we provide $25,000 in investment. We provide $25,000 in legal services. We provide a huge network of mentors, which adds I think incomparable value. I can't even provide a dollar amount for that. And then we have a perks package, which is up to $400,000 or $500,000 in value as well. And then obviously you have the access to the Preccelerator staff like Len and myself as an advisor as well. So thank you again for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Heidi.
Just wanted to welcome everybody. It's good to see all of you, and I know many of you know me, the history of the Preccelerator. So really looking forward to hearing the new class of companies tonight. Some of them I've heard in the past from past cohorts, and a couple of new ones, and it should be a really exciting night. We're very, very pleased to have Jason Nazar join us tonight. So I'm excited for you to hear about his startup journey and all of the successes and hurdles that he's had to go through to get where he's at today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Heidi. It's great to have you part of the team, and Heidi laid the groundwork for the Preccelerator for the past 7 years, and it was big shoes to fill coming here. So she's still a great support to me and to the Preccelerator because we share a team, and we have two people on the team that you probably don't see. Maybe Kennedy, you can give a wave there. Kennedy Alderton has started with us just this fall, and we're happy to have her. And then Manuel Tamayo is in the background. Manuel is somewhat shy, so he doesn't put his face up, but he is very integral to what we do here, and I just want to shout out to him and thank him. I'd also like to shout out to TriNet. I think Anna might be on the call, and just thank TriNet for their support and getting the word out. Hey, there she is. We appreciate you. If you don't know what TriNet is, they're your back office for HR, benefits, payroll. They do all of that and make it very simple. If you have any questions, you can chat with Anna directly during the presentation, or you can reach out to me and I'll connect you. Also, I hope to see Victor Grayer, and I don't see him front and center, but Victor and Jason and Cody are a new team called Bevs, and they're not presenting today, but they just joined the Preccelerator last month and are going through our program, and we'll look forward to hearing about their company at a future demo day. So just stay tuned, but I wanted to acknowledge them because they're active in the Preccelerator right now. So with that, let's get started. Our first company today is Blockforms. Blockforms was admitted to the program in March of this year. We started, I think, on March 1st, and then we closed down the office space on March 12th. And they've been virtual and coming in as needed over the past couple of months. They're ready to go, and I'm really excited about this company. We have a dynamic team of Tanya Vucevic and Bennett Heems. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tanya and share your screen, and let's go.
Okay, here we go. Thanks, Len. Alrighty, everyone sees the screen? We're good? Okay, so I want to start by thanking all of you at the Preccelerator. And hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon to learn about Blockforms. My name is Tanya Vucevic, and I'm the CEO of Blockforms. Today, I'm joined by my co-founder and our head of sales, Bennett Heems.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. Blockforms is a workflow management platform for employee benefit brokers designed to simplify everyday tasks. Brokers today help employers select the right healthcare plan for their business. And we know that healthcare costs continue to soar. Over 50% of companies rely on the expertise of a benefits broker to shop their coverage and find better plans every year. But the reality is only 18% of businesses actually go through the change process of insurance. And it's not because there's a lack of competitive plans, it's because the process is so time consuming. There are multiple applications to complete for both the broker and the client, and this workflow can take weeks to complete. Consumers today expect a digital purchasing experience, and healthcare simply is not there yet. Now, the reason this problem exists is that each insurance carrier has their own forms that are filed with each state in order to secure coverage. Completing them takes time. In fact, at a typical insurance brokerage, a team can spend 15 to 20% of their time managing this process. And I know this firsthand because I'm an employee benefits broker. Blockforms is created to simplify the process with what we call one-to-many form completion.
An employer, Company A, engages with an insurance broker to review competing employee benefits quotes and decides to switch carriers. The broker then creates a new block via our web app or Salesforce integration. The broker adds multiple carriers to the block, which generates a single application for the company to fill out online. Once Company A has completed the application, saving tons of back and forth communication, the broker reviews the submission, signs, and submits the multiple applications for approval. Insurance is here to stay, and it continues to see consistent growth throughout the industry, and our SOM is specifically employee benefits brokers for now.
Blockforms sits in a unique space within the overall insurance and technology landscape. We enable brokers and carriers to streamline the customer acquisition process. We sit between the broker and their employer client, not between an employer and their employee. And looking at the overall technology landscape, we found companies that do some similar work, but they serve different segments of the insurance market. An example of that would be Indio, which serves property and casualty brokers with carrier form aggregation. Another example is Rippling, which is a competitive payroll and human resource information system. It includes some functionality of block forms, but it's only confined to specific employers, and it is not a brokerage solution. Block forms is the only enablement platform serving employee benefit brokers with form aggregation, team management, and electronic signature.
Blockforms was incorporated in March of 2019. We launched our pilot this year in June, which has been a success, collecting lots of great, useful feedback, and we're on track for nationwide expansion March of next year. We're currently working with Marsh & McLennan Agency and Ward & Brown for deployment in the California markets. With funds, we'll continue to develop our AI for carrier form aggregation nationwide and marketing sponsorship for broker acquisition. Again, I'm Tanya Vucetic, CEO of Blockforms. I'm a data scientist and have a past life in finance. I currently work as a consultant for Rackspace, and I also have worked for large insurance companies such as Pacific Life and AIG. Ali Akhtar is our CTO. He's on the call today. He is a full stack developer and brilliant designer who's built impressive technology for the likes of World Bank, Cedars-Sinai, and McDonald's. And he also runs his own successful e-commerce business.
And I'm Bennett Heames, head of sales. I've spent my entire career in the employee benefits and insurance business. And I've worked in sales and operations for some of the largest insurance companies. I currently work as a benefits broker for Marsh & McLennan Agency. Now, we've been fortunate to work with some leading technology and insurance advisors to help build our product and our market fit. Matthew Watson is the CEO of Origin and a co-founder of Indio. He's helping with our capital raising efforts as well as our team development. Brian Sullivan is a market vice president for Humana and is providing contacts for brokerage customers throughout the West Coast. And Genevieve Nehu is a client executive with Marsh & McLennan Agency. She's been extremely helpful in launching our pilot with the firm as well as going through the vetting process. And her background is both in service on both the insurance carrier and the brokerage side. Now, how do we make money? We have a monthly charge per client that a broker puts on our system. And it's a unique billing model in that it is in alignment with the revenue model of a typical brokerage. We project that each brokerage we bring on to Blockforms will eventually be worth $2.5 million in revenue to Blockforms. In 2021, we expect to have signed 15 of the leading 50 benefit brokers to our platform. With nationwide expansion into 2022, our numbers are going to significantly increase with adoption by the brokers in all 50 states. We are a high margin business and our expenses are primarily for continued development and expanding our sales team.
Working remotely is here to stay. I know when we talk AI and machine learning, we're quick to think about robots and targeted ads. However, these technologies are also available to us to improve the way a process is already done by eliminating procedure inefficiencies and dependencies on in-person interactions. There's never been a better time to be in the realm of enablement technology. We've identified a pain point with plenty of room for optimization that can be applied to any industry that repeatedly interacts with forms. We're starting with insurance brokerages, making brokers more efficient, allowing them to pursue more sales or reduce their team size while closing deals more quickly. We are seeking a total of $2 million for our seed round, which will predominantly be used to increase the size and reach of our sales team and continued development. Thank you again for taking the time to get to know Blockforms today, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Bennett. We have one question here. Please, if you have questions, type them into chat, and we will read those questions out for you. From Murlock Fairwood, can you elaborate on the machine learning used? What's it used for and how? I think Tanya could probably take that question.
Sure. So these different carrier forms ask the same questions in different ways. So DBA, company name, company legal name, company, those are all the same questions. So Using a supervised machine learning method, our technology recognizes that these fields are in fact the same and consolidates them into one field. But it gets more complicated than that because some forms ask if you subscribe to certain federal regulations, and some of those you will fill in yes or no, some will be check boxes. So then we have to normalize for the different formatting as well. So check boxes, drop downs, fill-ins, and that's where the machine learning component comes in.
Thank you, Tanya. Do we have any other questions for block forms? Yes, I do. So what stops any competitor or potential competitor from doing what block forms does?
I'll go ahead and take that one.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. So what's interesting is other companies that exist in the insurtech space, such as Rippling or Indio, serve different elements of it. And the complexity of the forms, not only do each carriers have their unique forms, but they're different in every single state. And so the complexity of working in the employee benefit standpoint is really what is keeping competitors away from this solution. The other roadblock that exists is the insurance companies aren't working off of one consolidated form, whereas in other types of insurance, such as property and casualty, they have a standardized application, and that just does not exist at the state and federal level for healthcare.
Thank you. One more question, and I think we'll wrap up, but what has been the biggest challenge you faced, and how have you addressed it? Tanya, you want to take that?
Sure, I can answer really honestly for you. One of the greatest challenges was early on. We were originally a co-founding team of 4, and navigating when a team member is not necessarily a perfect fit and ending on amicable terms. And I think everyone on this call can appreciate navigating relationships, especially when it comes to money and business. So we were successful, and we buttoned everything up thanks to the help of Stubbs Alderton.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Any last questions? If not, we're going to keep to our schedule. By the way, we have 15-minute blocks for each one of these presentations. We've asked the presenters to keep the timing to 8 minutes of presentation, and we have about 7 minutes for questions and answers. Now, Vince is laughing at me right now because he knows I'm speaking directly to him, indirectly, but it's my pleasure right now to introduce from Class 13. They started in October of 2019. They've been with us for exactly a year. And Vince actually is presenting from Denver, Colorado, where he resides, but he has a distributed team, and the virtual world works real well for our next company, Ogset. Vince, take it away.
Thanks to the entire Preccelerator family. I mean, ever since we've joined the program, it's just been a terrific resource for us. So I'm Vince Arena, the CEO of Ogset, and we also have our co-founders, Stephen Katrina, our CTO, and Laura Murtaugh, she's our EVP and General Counsel, with us on the call. And I'm going to be talking about using the power of online communities to re-envision how mobile marketplaces work. And for a little bit of reference, our prototype has been in the market since May, and we're excited to be going with a full version release next month. So Ogset enables anyone to operate their own unique mobile marketplace. We've taken the social network structure of online communities and blended it together with marketplace tools so people who share a common interest have one place to go to discuss, buy, and sell the things they are passionate about. And community is also behind our key differentiator, which is real-time shared experiences. Both the real-time discussions and the highly interactive buying and selling tools are designed to be entertaining content. This keeps a targeted, topic-specific audience engaged and ready to buy. So our early adopters have primarily been small businesses who have sell topic-related merchandise and have some type of pre-existing social media audience. As an example, we have a tabletop gaming store that also has been selling online for over 20 years and has about a 5,000-member Facebook community. They've been able to increase their online sales by 30% by running a few commerce events each month, which add an incremental $2,500 to sales. And they've never used social networking to directly sell before, and they're telling us that this is absolutely now part of their long-term strategy. So we are an online sales tool, and for most small sellers, the two methods to be in the game here are either websites or large marketplace platforms. Both are becoming increasingly challenging as everything moves to online. Building websites can be time-consuming and expensive, and it still requires ongoing investment to get that audience awareness. And on top of that, end users today are seeking app-based experiences, and this whole web browsing and website structure is becoming dated. The other option is to use a large traditional marketplace platform and build a storefront, but most sellers can't compete with the established players on these tools already who have invested time and paid big premiums to get the best exposure on the platforms. So social networks have kind of actually provided this partial solution for some really creative sellers that have the time and energy to directly sell items by manually typing in their conversation feeds. This is where our concept kind of has its roots, but for most small businesses, the manual processes involved are just too cumbersome. So that solves its initial opportunity. We know small businesses have a need, and we have this vision. We're confident that it won't be long until everyone on this call will be making purchases directly through chat interactions for some of the things that they buy, if you're not doing that already. And we saw this coming early because we had a significant expertise of our own, both selling on these marketplace tools and in social formats, while our day jobs are building scalable communications tech. So we started building new ways to sell, like direct listings in a chat feed and live auction events where everybody can interact in real time together. And our platform allows us to continue to add innovative new selling tools that really nobody's ever seen before. The the historical industry leader in interest-based selling or items of interest is eBay. eBay alone, the merchandise that they sell on their platform that relates to our categories that we target represents over $3 billion of annual transaction fees. That's just the fees. But of course, eBay has no community tools whatsoever, and they have no way to really pivot into what we're up to. So what we're doing is we're taking the way that all of us, in particular in the kind of the crazy times we live in today, are increasingly communicating, which is an always-on group chat format. And we're kind of following the same thing that's happened where Slack has done this for work groups and Discord has done this for gamers, and we're taking the same model and applying it to the markets. So we kind of fit in between these two platform solutions, and we feel we've got a defensible position because of the inherent nature of how these things work. Commerce tools are built for single user experiences. Search and filter, you get in there, they're expecting a one person look at a ton of things kind of effort. While community tools, they're really built for casual use. They're not structured. And when people are doing transactions, they want structure, they want to feel protected. And it's really hard for these big community platforms to do this. Even the Facebook tools that allow you to sell are really designed for just individual one-off sellers. I'm going to take a second, kind of show you what our tech looks like. Really, I'm just going to focus you on the center slide. Here you have a live auction. People are able to watch and see everybody bidding. They can chat. The scroll on top runs whenever there's a live event running. You can see the merchandise running across. It's a very fun and interactive experience. And the way we make money on all this is to take a fee. It's pretty similar to eBay. The twist with us is, so we're successful when the seller's successful, but we reinvest a quarter of that fee back into the community by giving commissions to the moderators and influencers who both help bring people in and keep them engaged with discussions and organizing community events and things like that. So we kind of have this cyclical ecosystem. And the way our community economics work is we try to get to around $1,000 a week per community, and that'll generate around $300 a month of selling fees for us. And we're not going to get into a detailed breakdown of our model, but it takes about 100 communities for us to break even in our current organization structure, and it rapidly increases in profitability once we get to that level and start expanding. So how are we going to get that first 100 is we're going to target the people who targeted us. These our early adopters came to us because they saw what we were doing. These small businesses that have storefronts and they sell merchandise that is interest-based. And what we've done is we've looked at 6 specific categories in 3 geographic markets where we can be close by. And we've already identified over 500 businesses that have significant online audiences on Facebook or Reddit that we can tap. And our pitch is pretty simple. All we're telling them is, hey, you guys know that this is going on because they do. We've made tools to make this simple for you to do. And with that, we're going to try to get to our first 100 or plus communities. And we believe that the mechanisms for growth for us will eventually become automation and being able to go after the hundreds of thousands of influencers and moderators who have communities that a lot of them are interested in buying and selling topic related items and having them come on our platform. So we've been up to this for about 2.5 years now. The first year we ran some proof of concept where by hand we were able to use a chat app to generate $5,000 to $10,000 a day in selling between community members for a niche trading card community. And we decimated eBay when we did that. That was enough for us to believe this is what we were going to do. We went out and built a development team. That team has invested 18 months into the prototype, and now we can build kind of major features in months. We can build minor features in weeks. And our existing prototype that's just kind of been sitting there as we build version 1.0 has sold over 1,300 items with the communities that are using it right now. And we have 3 of those communities that have done over $250 in fees for us on a monthly basis. Our team is pretty diverse. 4 of us worked together in prior company that we sold to Zayo, a large telco. That was a VoIP platform. We have Steve, our CTO, who's actually really well versed in power selling on eBay and has built a huge YouTube following. So he really intimately understands the tech he's building, what it's supposed to be doing. And in May, we added Paul Guerin as a board member and EVP of sales and business development. And Paul has been CEO of several very important companies in the tech space. And he was also the CEO of Jabber, which is really the first company to commercialize chat and became part of WebEx. And then Nicole, who's an expert in helping startups get their products to market. So today we raised $400,000. This year, initially we raised money from our team and some of our family members. This year we did about $150,000 in 2 closes from kind of led by professional angels. We burn around $12,000 a month, which gives us runway until the second quarter. We're definitely still talking to interested angels today, if any of them on here are interested in the story. But our target is to get to a $1.5 million capital raise in the second quarter of next year. So that's Auxit. Thanks for taking the time to listen about what we're up to, and we're happy to take questions.
Thanks, Vince. Great job. And right on time.
That's what matters, Len. I got it down.
You did a great job. Any questions for Vince and Auxit? Please use the chat. That will be the easiest way for us to take the questions.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Anybody?
And Jonathan, I'll give a shout out while we're on the screen. I mean, Jonathan's a mentor through the Preccelerator, and he's not only a mentor, but a partner to our business and helped us with our go-to-market thinking, and I'm sure will help us a lot in the future.
So I guess I'll ask a question because I thought it was a good question to ask that was asked of our first company. And that question is, Vince, what has been your biggest challenge and how have you overcome it?
Our biggest challenge is that we are really we're not trying to make something better. We're doing something completely different. And, learning how to educate all the different people, all the different players in this ecosystem about what we're doing quickly is definitely the hardest thing that we've dealt with the whole way, from getting the resources to do this, getting users to adopt it. That's it. Understanding how to quickly tell them what the heck we are doing and why it's important. And that is, it's hard because you have very different audiences, very different things you have to say to them to get to them in the same place. So.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Wait a second. Let's see. I thought I saw something come up. So from Brian McMahon over at Expert Dojo, he's asking, can you go deeper into your projections and market expansion plan?
Sure. I mean, right now our plan is to do a direct sell. So we are going to use phone calls and soft lists. We've got experts who basically take the list we build and get on the phone with as many people as they can and hand us warm leads that already understand what we're up to. And then we have this whole set of documentation, website support, and administrative tools. But that's how we're going to be doing this probably for the next year. And I know a lot of people are going to look at that and go, well, that's not scalable. And we're okay with that. We expect that this concept is something that will eventually catch. So, Brian, if I've answered your question, that's how it's going to be a very granular direct selling process. And, we're prepared and kind of ready to go do that for the next 12 months.
Thanks, Vince. Let's see. Asher Leeds asked, why have you and your team decided to do this? What was the impetus to make this happen?
Because we're nuts. That's why. No, the impetus was, we were like Steven and I have always been. We sold our last company and we had some extra time to get back into our hobbies, and we saw what we both. He does custom car parts. I do trading cards, and we both saw the same thing. It's like people were trying to get away from these big marketplaces using social media, but it was so clunky, and we just knew we could do that better. That this was where the people who were trying to do this, they couldn't build a communications platform. That's what we do. We built multiple of them. So that's why we saw the opportunity. We believe this is absolutely something that's going to become mainstream, and that we can be an early mover in this space.
Thanks, Vince. Last question. Scott, you had a long, involved question that I don't want to read, so I'm going to let you ask the question.
Okay. Vince, I was just thinking, I've loved this from the beginning because I was intimately involved with Skype from its inception sale to eBay. And I remember being in a conversation with Meg Whitman when they bought Skype, and she said, eBay is fundamentally about communication between buyers and sellers, and that's why we're willing to buy Skype and pay a lot of money for it. And so they did, and then they divested it 4 years later because they just couldn't make communication between buyer and seller work. So why does your platform do that, and why is it so much better?
Well, that's a great question, and I would go straight to WebSockets and the same technology that's being leveraged by Slack and Discord. WhatsApp. You can look at them as well. They have a little bit of a different tech. How do you make 1,000 devices and 1,000 people experience the same thing at the same time so that they can all share it? Because just like this call, we can be here in real time and it's really has a lot more emotional connection, or we can watch a recording of it tomorrow and I guarantee you it's 10% as emotional experience. So the technology that exists today, Scott, is way beyond can I get the word hello back and forth between you and I? It's presence technology. It's watching this person's typing and you see this activity happen. All of that is happening in real time. So the communications tech of today is incredibly powerful when you optimize it and organize it efficiently. So I think that's a big difference.
All right, thanks, Vince. I think we're out of time and I don't see any other questions. So with that, we're going to go on to our next presentation. So Obi Onajikwe, and I know I didn't say that right, Obi, I apologize. I've been practicing your name for 2 days and I still can't get it right. But Obi's one of our alumni. He's been here at the Preccelerator now going on a couple of years. One of the benefits of being part of the Preccelerator is that you have access to our facility when we're open Monday through Friday. So Obi's a fixture here. He's working very diligently. He's had some success in raising money, and I'm going to let him tell you his story about Unomi. Obi, take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me? You can. All right. Hi, so my name is Obi Onajikwe. I'm the CEO and founder of Unomi. So Unomi is a software as a service for animators and video game developers. Our top mission is to automate the most complex tasks in the animation and video game development process. So the overall industry is, so animations in video game development is extremely time consuming and expensive. The average animated show costs about $400,000 per episode, and animated movies well up to hundreds of millions of dollars per movie. The market overall is about $37 billion. So there's over 600 plus universities that teach animation and video game development alone. And each university on average would be ordering 1,000 to 2,000 seats per software. And then we have the animation studios worldwide. There's over 61,000 of those the studios. And on average, they'd be ordering about 20 to 10 seats per software as well. And then there's over 700,000 plus animators globally. And many of them generate revenue on YouTube, creating original animated content. So our solution, we have a suite of software that automates the most complex tasks in animation and video game development process. So using Unami, users are looking at about $250,000 per animated show that they work on versus $400,000 if they do everything by hand, not using the Unami software suite. So this is a good chance. So here's an example of our overall software suite. So we started off with our 2D and 3D lip syncing software, which is on the market now. This automates lip syncing for 2D and 3D animated characters, allowing animators to automate this process so they no longer have to do it by hand, which takes quite a bit of time. We also have our Marcos motion tracking software. So users can easily upload footage recorded from home, in the studio, or in an office space. And Unami will easily track their human movement and allow them to take that skeletal movement to any 3D program that they're accustomed to. So this is versus going to a motion capture facility where they'd be charged about $2,000 an hour. We also have our avatar creator, which allows users to create 3D avatar characters, similar to what you'd see in Fortnite or any other video game. And then from there, they can make them move using our motion capture software and then make them speak using our lip syncing software. All this combined will allow them to create animated content easier, faster, even within a day versus months, if not a year. Here's an example of some of it in action. So here's our 2D lip syncing software. This is an example of 30 seconds of lip syncing done in just a couple seconds. Without our software, this will be done in about a week. And this is an example of the 3D lip sync software. And this is about 30 seconds being processed right now. It normally take that artist about 3 weeks to do that. And here's a motion capture. So you just load in any piece of footage and it'll track the human movement, just like I said, and you can export that to any 3D program that you're working in. And of course, there's the avatar creator. And like I said, you can easily create a 3D character within seconds and then use the motion capture to make them move and then lip syncing software to make them speak. So our revenue model is pretty simple. We allow users to test it out with a free trial. And then from there, they could go to the monthly subscription. And then with the annual subscription, they save about 25% on the overall value of for the annual value. And then with our 3D plugin, it's a one-time fee of $350. So once again, our target customers are television and film studios. That's examples are Netflix, Disney, Cartoon Network. Beauty here is these studios have multiple departments that would order, like I said, 10 to 20 seats per department. And then you have the independent content creators that's on YouTube, indie video game developers, and of course, content creators on Patreon. Then the universities and students, once again, the beauty of this universities, they order well up to 2,000 seats, sometimes 1,000, and that's per university globally. So our founders, of course, myself, come from the entertainment and advertising background. Unami is my second startup. Nito was my first, which was acquired by AOL. Arama Brown is our lead software engineer. She has extensive background knowledge in AI and app development. And Llama is our full stack developer with deep knowledge of 3D software development. So our overall competitive advantage is that like I said, we really focus on the hardest parts in developing in animation and video game development, which is of course the lip syncing, 3D, overall body motion capture, and of course the building out of the 3D character. All these things combined make it extremely easy and quick to produce animated content. Our other advantage is it's very easy to use our software. You don't have to take any courses, expensive courses to learn how to use our software. You can just watch a couple of videos and you'll easily be able to use the software for production or current production of your content. So our roadmap, so we've raised 100,000 from Backstage Capital, and we've raised additional 107,000 from Microventures. We've also gained multiple credits from AWS and Microsoft Azure, which we're currently using. We have $365 monthly recurring revenue, and that's not including our customers that have ordered annual license. We have a provisional patent for our lip syncing software, and then we're going to be going after motion capture, a patent for our motion capture software as well. And then we have launched, of course, our 2D and 3D lip syncing software. The Avatar Creator will be launching at the end of the year, and of course, beginning of next year will be our motion capture software as well. So our go-to-market. So from what we're currently doing is we're using lead generation right now to gain some of our customers, and then influencers to help get the word out. Then from there, once we raise additional revenue, we'll build out our Avatar Creator, which will be featured on FX Factory, which the beauty there is they'll be handling all our marketing and sales. They'll be taking 20%. We're using them just because they have the ability to ramp up sales aggressively, which would lead us with an estimate of $40,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Once we gain that milestone, we'll ramp up with digital ad campaigns on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Google. So we're raising a total of $1.5 million in seed capital, and most of that will go to overall development on all our software platforms. Of course, with the enterprise sales team to help lead and ramp up sales, and then advertising and legal as well. Thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, folks. Thank you, Obi. Great presentation today. So Murloc is asking, your target customer segments seem vastly varied. Are you prioritizing one segment in particular to start? And if so, how are you pursuing them?
So we're actually going after the independent animators and content creators first. We are talking to universities, but that's a slower ramp up in sales, but we are going after individuals first, just because it's a lot quicker.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Give you a couple minutes to type them in there, if anybody has anything. All right, so nope, that wasn't a question. Obi, why don't you talk about what has been your biggest challenge to date and how have you overcome it?
I would say marketing is the biggest challenge, and the way we've gone past that or overcoming that is just with that partnership with FX Factory, which will really allow us to ramp up in sales and marketing without spending the money for it.
Great. From the audience, any other questions? All right, we're running through this quickly here. I don't see anything, so thank you very much, Obi, and good luck with Unomi, and we're happy to have you here. So our last presentation this afternoon is with a founder that I started working with at the beginning of the year when she was introduced to me through the firm. And at the time, she really didn't have a product. And this is the power of what COVID forced a lot of people to do, is to pivot. And Melissa is a brilliant person. She recognized a market opportunity. She recognized that she had the perfect storm between a partner and her research and development and the things that she was doing. And I'm going to let her tell her story because she does it much better than I do. And with that, I give you Melissa Painter from Breakthrough.
Hi, thank you so much, Len. So I'm here today to talk to you about Breakthrough, which is a software platform for immersive well-being experiences for our workday. And those are driven by AI, spatial computing, and our bodies in motion. I've been working for the past 4.5 years with a core team that has expertise in spatial computing and design delivery in terms of how we relate our body to the technology in our world. We had been focused on a really core problem with an incredibly interesting group of partners. And so those partners, on the one hand, were high-level tech companies who came to us and asked us to design and make on their emergent technologies to think about this problem and opportunity space. And on the other hand, they were analog customers and strategic partners like Nike, like Lululemon, like Cliff Bar, like the Marines, who asked us to think, about same thing, potential between technology and the human body. And so that's the space that we've all been living in for the past 4.5 years. We had honed in pre-COVID, and as Len aptly said, we did not yet have a product, but we'd honed in on what we saw as a core opportunity space, which was a fact that our body, in fact, is the best piece of technology that each or any of us owns. We have a terrible habit of not bringing it to our workday. And I will cite this call as a perfect example of that. I am feeling tired and tense, and I would imagine all of you are too, and yet we're so used to sitting still in the context of our workdays that we don't think about the mental and physical health consequences of that. That sedentary behavior is very directly linked, and there's enormous data to back this up, to many of the chronic conditions that Americans suffer from: diabetes, obesity, even cancer. But it also, there was another aspect of this problem set that was really deeply interesting to us, which was that most of us feel like we're busier than we ever were before. And yet if you actually look at it and do the math, we turn out to waste a lot of time in our workday. And so we were curious about the problem, working hard on it. And then COVID happened. And Microsoft came to us because they've been a partner who's believed in us greatly. And they said, we know that you care about this problem. We know that you've been working on it. And we are seeing a whole new extreme set of user need in this space. We have an entire workforce shifting to work from home. We have people cut loose from the rituals they normally use in their workday. We have people unable to balance work and family. And also, for logical reasons, we're contending with enormous stress at a global scale. So they asked us, they challenged us really by seed funding us to come up with an MVP, to take all of the thinking that we've been working on in this shared immersive spatial compute space and to relocate it to this environment. By this environment, I literally mean this environment. I mean this call we're on. I mean the shared remote workspaces that we all use. In the case of Microsoft, that's Teams. Teams is essentially if Slack and Zoom got married and had a baby. So it's both of those things at once. It's where you have your shared work encounters synchronously and asynchronously. So they set us out into their employee base, and we went to some of the other partners that we have, and we started talking. We started talking to heads of HR. We were hearing from them, my entire workforce is stressed all at once, and that the tools that I normally use are out the window. I don't have brick and mortar. I can't send someone to their gym membership. I can't bring them into a group huddle and have that make everyone feel better. I need new tools. And what's more, there's no best practices. No one's figured out how to do this yet. We were talking to team leaders, and to me, this was really resonant because people rise to the level of a leader inside a large enterprise organization traditionally because they have a lot of really valuable soft skills. They know how to tell when someone's having a bad day. They know how to invite a new team member into the room, into the group, into the collaboration. A lot of those skills are really hard to activate in this environment, and they were stuck. They were stuck with the teams that they had, but they were also stuck trying to figure out, what do you do with a new hire who's never stood in the same room with these people they now have to trust and work with? And lastly, and perhaps most relevant to everyone on this call, because we all feel it in our own bones, individuals were just having a really damn hard time with all the problems that I mentioned previously, balancing home life, work life, starting and stopping a day. On average, all of us are working 48 more minutes a day than we did pre-COVID, and most of us are doing it in a more sedentary fashion. So we loved the challenge. We were really hopeful that we had a solution. We went after it with a pretty distinct point of view, which is that to build a useful tool for that entire community base, we couldn't build it for an individual. We had to think about the group. We had to think about all of those different strata and to try to provide something that each of them could reach into and activate. So 7 minutes in, I'm to what the product is. So Breakthrough is movement-based micro breaks, tunable to what you and your teammates need in the moment. Micro means short, really short, 2 minutes long, which means that we could do one in the context of this call and not throw the whole meeting. It means that you can slide them in between your 2 o'clock and your 3 o'clock and still have a moment to go grab a cup of coffee. So that's a key component. Movement driven, because it turns out that if you just use your body, just move your body, just take 5 deep breaths, you can reset your metabolism, reset your mind. The last key word is tunable, and tunable is, we're not a meditation app. I don't believe, and I personally don't want, meditation in my workplace. I think meditation is awesome, but I think it's a private choice. It's not going to get fed to me by my boss. Also, it's not what I need at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I need joyful. I might need awake. I might need confident. And so we've made a tool that can be reactive to what you're reaching for in that moment. We feel like we replace a mirror, a coffee break. Maybe today we're the thing that replaces a trip to the fridge. We know that we are delivering health benefits, mental health benefits, and that these are quantifiable and verifiable. The science behind that is not just our brains, it's these very basic things that I talked about, which is it's just a true fact that if you take 5 deep breaths, you've improved your metabolism. If you stand up and move around every 40 minutes, you've improved your health in that day. Okay, so to the opportunity space. We are in a partnership agreement with Microsoft, but we are not exclusive to them. So that means we're launching inside Microsoft Teams. It's a great point of entry for us. We deeply believe in them as a partner, but Slack and Zoom are sitting out there. However, you know, I wasn't even aware of this figure until we jumped into this sprint with them. 75 million daily active users. Every enterprise you can imagine, tons of educational, completely global. And one thing I should say about our app is that it's not language contingent. There's no reason someone couldn't be doing it tomorrow in Singapore. On the side of that is the corporate well-being market space, which is enormous. The craziest figure of all, though, is $4.5 trillion today is the global wellness market. So we may not be doing a good job of keeping all of us well, but there's an enormous amount of money getting spent on it. Traction, Microsoft for us is both partner and also customer number one. They're customer number one in terms of allowing us to go in October 1st when we launch in their marketplace and sell and convert relationships with different aspects of their business as we work to secure the enterprise well-being license that we're talking to them about. They also are helping us with securing customer number 2. They're helping us by demoing our app inside all of the courses they're teaching their enterprise customers about shifting workforces to work from home. They're helping us by including us in conferences, et cetera. The people that you see represented here, and actually we've now closed something with Lululemon, but these are all people with whom we're in active conversations. You're gonna see up at the top, schools and healthcare workers free out of the gate. 1, we feel like that's really important. 2, there's a little bit of a get one, give one math going on in our head that I know it means more if I'm inside Microsoft and I'm participating in this for myself, for my group, but also that my participation in a corporation is enabling kids to participate in it. We're a subscription model. The street price for an individual user is $4.90 a month, which means we are cheaper than, at least in LA and San Francisco, a cup of coffee. We've done a lot of research around that pricing, and we feel very confident that that is a sweet spot. We have tiered pricing opportunities for anyone buying a subscription for their team. For example, the head of innovation at Lululemon just decided yesterday to gift his entire team with a digital care package of which we're the core element. So we're priced really well to sell in that way. And then ultimately, of course, enterprise licenses themselves. Our go-to-market strategy is both top-down and bottom-up. And by that, I mean that from the moment that we're live in the Teams App Store, there's nothing to stop anyone from discovering us. And we will literally, at that moment in time, be the only well-being app inside that store. So we'll see where that goes. But we also, of course, are in conversation around enterprise pilots and enterprise licenses. But where my gut goes is that the sweet spot for us in the beginning is going to be that mid-level, people that are responsible for a headcount of 5, 10, 500, 2,000, who are very easily, with the click of a button, able to buy a yearly subscription for their entire team and upload it into the team system, again, with the click of a button. The competitive landscape from our vantage point is the meditation unicorns like the Calm and the Headspace. From, again, our vantage point, we've been designed to serve you at your most productive moment in the day versus to be something that you do in the morning or at night to start or to end your day. And also the fact that we're activating your body is an incredible hack for resetting your mind. I find it way easier than meditation. That's my personal preference. But as we go out and user test it, we're finding that to be the same with many. I'm also just throwing up here the Pelotons and Mirrors of the world to remind people that people are looking for ways to bring these well-being offerings into their homes, and that those are good examples. Strava, really just to say that we think about the social, and we know that that's an important piece of it. We're in the middle of a 500K pre-seed. That's to get us through this moment of arriving in the Microsoft marketplace and taking the user data that we're getting right now off Microsoft and off customer number 2 and number 3 to hone our product so that it's as strong as it possibly can be when we go broader into the market and with this second raise. And the timeline of this, truthfully, is just more money adds more fuel to the fire. We know how to spend it. We know what we're doing. We know where we're going. I'm lucky to have Scott on my board. And I also have Tom Clark, who's the head of innovation of Nike, on my board. He was the president of Nike. He was the head of brand when they came up with Just Do It. And he's an incredible secret weapon. And that's it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Melissa. I tell you, doing these presentations on Zoom does not capture the energy of all 4 of these founders. And Melissa is certainly very energetic. And if you ever get a chance to try her product Breakthrough, please do so. I find it very helpful. We actually circulate those within our own team here at the Preccelerator and within the firm. So we do have a question here, and it goes to your non-diluted sources of money. The $2.5 million that you've raised from strategic partners for research. Can you talk a little bit about the process of how you went about finding those partners? Hang on. There you go.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, our feeling when we stepped into the spatial compute space was that there was not, in fact, a business model yet. And so it was a hard moment to stand up a company and say, guess what, this is going to make cash. Instead, what we did is we went to the Microsofts and the Unities and the HPs and NVIDIAs of the world and said, hey, we've got an idea that we think is really good for your platform. And the way that those arrangements worked was that people, so a Microsoft would take an exclusive temporary license to what we were building on their platform. And it allowed us in this very unusual fashion to be able to get a lot of work done, produce a lot of prototypes, have a lot of user experience without relinquishing IP. It also allowed us to be in this incredible moment of making on emergent tech before it was even available to other developers.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Here's a question. How come I can't find your app on the Google Play Store?
After I said we weren't exclusive to Microsoft, because right now we are in a private beta with Microsoft, but if you want to give me your email, I'm happy to pass it to you. We will be solely on Teams, Microsoft Teams, as our platform, probably for at least the first month and a half of our release, so October into November, but we are building other integrations as we speak.
Here's a question. How do you convince individuals to pay for something like this without branding your product with existing wellness meditation buzzwords?
It's an interesting question. So 2 things. On the one hand, our strong expectation is that our first customers, and this is already playing itself out in our sales, is not you as an individual. It's your boss, it's the org that you work for, it's your manager. It's something that's being bought on behalf of HR, essentially, or out of morale dollars in terms of trying to keep a team comfortable and happy working from home. In terms of individual users going after it, the truth is I'm not trying to arrive in the meditation space. We've done a lot of testing to make sure that an engineer at Microsoft or someone who's got no movement practice at all, who doesn't believe in meditation or yoga, feels comfortable doing the movement that we're doing. So I don't know if that fully addressed your question, but that's our stance on it.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Doing some tech work on behind the scenes here. Any other questions? Asher, I know you'd like to try this out. I will send you a test of Breakthrough so you can check it out. And if you have any feedback from Melissa or myself, you can get directly to me, okay? Very good. Thank you all. Thank you for your attention. These are 4 great companies. If anybody is interested in working with these companies from a funding standpoint, please, you can reach out to them through the Preccelerator directly through me, or reach out directly through them. They have their contact information on their slide decks. I am now privileged to introduce again the managing partner of Stubbs Alderton and Markleys, Scott Alderton, who's going to take us through a fireside chat with one of Silicon Beach's great tech minds, someone who has done down and dirty work in the trenches, working, founding companies, and really helping entrepreneurs here throughout Los Angeles, Jason Nazar. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Alderton.
Thank you very much, Len. I am back, and there's Jason. Hi, Jason. Good to see you. So this really is a privilege, and I've got to say it's a little awkward because Jason is the master of hosting fireside chats and moderating them. So right now, but I will do my very best. And the other thing that you need to know about Jason, for those of you who don't know him, is he's incredibly humble, and he really implored me to make this not so much about him as I would about helping entrepreneurs and getting the benefit of his experience. So I'm going to try my best for the chat to that, but obviously we're going to be going through sort of Jason's entrepreneurial journey and trying to relate it to his learning lessons for the benefit of all of you. So Jason, thank you very much. It's great to see you again. It's been a long time. Connect. And let's just start at the beginning. So a lot of people don't know that you're actually a lawyer. You went to law school. Grad and Pepperdine joint JD MBA. So what was the thought process behind that educational path, and was the law part of it just a tool, or did you actually at one point, God forbid, contemplate being a lawyer? Oh, hold on, Jason, we're not hearing you.
He's unmuted.
Jason, we're not hearing you very well.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
We're having a technical problem. You're not muted, but we're not hearing you.
Are you able to hear me now? Yes?
Yeah, okay.
Great. Well, first off, thanks for having me. And it's amazing to see all of you. Congratulations on all the incredible success and momentum that you have so far. I got to hear a couple of your presentations. Would certainly love to meet all of you, and you're really lucky to have Scott in your corner. I've known him for I think close to 15 years now, and it's pretty amazing to have somebody that's as knowledgeable as him and his team in your corner, and just a really incredible reputation. So I've always been impressed with the work that you've done overall, and the Preccelerator is incredible. And we also share a wall, so we are literally comparably the next door neighbor to the Preccelerator. You can go knock on the wall and you can peek in and say hi to us. And so I hope to get to see you all. Now to your question, I'm originally from LA, and I did a JD MBA here. I've actually been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. So the only time I ever really worked for somebody else was 35 when I sold my last internet company to Intuit. I started a company right out of undergrad. And then I went to start my MBA and did the JD MBA. And to your question, Scott, I think that I never planned to practice law in the traditional sense. I was really interested in real estate. I thought I might use the degree in a real estate capacity. I was the student body president of UC Santa Barbara and of my business school. And so I always thought, like, hey, at some point here, I'm going to get back into politics. Having a law degree would be helpful. The real truth of the matter is, a big part of me went to law school because I knew I wanted to start something, and I didn't have that idea yet, and I was buying myself a little bit more time. And if I had those 4 years to do over again, I really wish I just started a venture-backed business when I was 23 instead of 27, because I think I could have accomplished so much more in those 4 years. That said, the law degree has been unbelievably valuable. I use it every single week in what we do. It's helpful for how I think about solving problems. It's helpful in working with clients. It's helpful in managing contracts, which I do all day long. And so, you know, that was a really helpful background for me in my career.
Well, you've accomplished a lot, so wanting to accomplish more is a good. Relatively early on in DocStock, how did you evolve to that idea, and what was it that made you think really early on, before there was like a lot of digital content on the internet, that that was a good idea and that would work?
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to do in each of the answers about myself, because I really don't want to make this about me. I think what's going to be much more helpful is trying to talk about the journey that you are on. So I'll try to share a lesson that's maybe applicable to each of you. And just FYI, Scott, you're cutting out, I think, from time to time. So I heard the end part of that question. I don't know if other people are hearing you cut out. Maybe just put it in chat, but just FYI for the future. So I basically had the idea in 2006 to start YouTube for documents. And my thesis was that I wanted to help people get any legal contract, business form, financial model that they ever needed to run their business, to help them in their professional career. And you know, at that same time, there were two other products that were coming up at exactly the same time. I had the idea. One was Scribd, another SlideShare. And really, I knew nothing about building an internet company, venture capital. I spent my third year of law school working with a firm in India. I was, you know, self-funding this whole thing. I think I put in $25,000, $30,000 of savings. I took out student loans and was using that to fund this, and really spent my whole year just building the product I had envisioned, having never done that before. I had the advantage of having done a lot of business networking in undergrad, and so I had a group of individuals that I was able to go to raise the first $750,000, and then we had enough progress that we basically, you know, were able to raise around the venture capital about a year after we launched the company. And you know, I think in our case, we were really passionate about this idea that we would build the world's largest library of professional documents. What that evolved into was, you know, really building the largest small business content site. And before we sold the company into it, we had 50 million registered users all across the globe. Our website was reaching 30 million people a month. It was a fast-growing subscription product, a very profitable company. And I think there were maybe 2 or 3 applicable lessons that I had, you know, back then that is what you are living through. One is, if I had any idea at all about how hard and difficult and challenging it was going to be, I probably would have not gone down that path. And so, you know, naivete in some ways is one of our biggest advantages, but also just putting yourself in the arena. The second thing, and I got this advice from a couple of incredible mentors to me, one of whom was Matt Coffin, who started and sold Lower My Bills. Another was Robin Richard, who started and sold many companies here in Southern California, was that what breaks out someone early on from most other people that want to start a business in a fast-growing technology business is the ability to move at an unprecedented speed. And time is both our biggest ally and enemy. And what every investor is, you know, putting their money behind is you all as a team, your product, but the momentum that you're having. And what a lot of people just really have a hard time grasping is how quickly we all need to move in all stages of a venture-backed business, but especially in that seed stage. Like the things that take other people and companies 2 weeks to do, we should be expected to do in an afternoon. Part of the way we solve that is by just working longer and harder than other people. Part of the way that we solve for that is having really high standards for ourselves. And part of the way we solve for that is growth hacking. And I'll bring this back to law school, and then I'll turn it back to you, Scott. Most of us don't really know the limits of what we can accomplish until we test ourselves. So think of the person that's never run, and how would they ever think they'd run a marathon? But yet with consistent practice over 6 months, you can go from not running at all to running 27 miles. In law school, I literally didn't go to my classes, and I a day or two before an exam, took somebody else's outline, locked myself in a room, crammed it. And I was never at the top of my class, but I was never at the bottom. And what I did is I just tested the boundaries of how little you could study and still pass, you know, law school. And what I then did with that time is I was starting businesses, I was networking, I was meeting investors. And so each of you need to have these ridiculously audacious standards for your company, for your co-founders, for yourself. And a lot of it early on is how fast you can move, not how good you are. And Reid Hoffman has this great quote that, you know, if you're not unbelievably embarrassed by the first product that you put out, then you've waited way too long to launch it. And that goes to this essence of how quickly we all need to move.
That's a super great point. Nicholas Zenstrom, the founder of Skype, had a similar analogy where he said, if we waited around for Skype to be perfect, we would never be successful. It's a rocket ship, and we have to get to the moon. And so we're throwing the toolkit on board, and we're launching, and we'll fix it as we go. So the speed is a really great point, and it kind of transitions nicely into the next point I wanted to talk about. And this is an area where I think you really can be helpful to the entrepreneurs on board, because this is a learning experience. So DocStock had some really distinct pivots. You have an idea and you think you know where you want to go, and you're trying to get there as fast as you can, but at the same time you got to be cognizant of what's working and what's not working, and what the market is telling you, and how you have to get to something that actually does work, and not just be like head down so steadfast that you miss the opportunity. So DocStock launched as a document sharing website. You moved to being sort of a much more broader resource for business owners. Then you pivoted to the Doc Store. Then you ultimately became a premium content creator and a subscription model for premium content. So how do entrepreneurs think about how to recognize what's going on around them and see the forest through the trees and make those pivots?
Yeah, it's an incredibly important question. And I think you hit on the head a challenge that we all have early on, and really through the life of our businesses. And so I call this the entrepreneur's dilemma. And what I mean by this is that on the one hand, we all know the mythology of that founder, like Steve Jobs has this massive vision for what his or her business can be. And they stay true to that no matter what. And everybody else tells them it's going to fail, but they're the ones that has this big vision. And then they become this massive success, create something that shakes the world. On the other hand, we also know that most businesses, especially venture-backed businesses, fail. They don't work out. They don't meet the goals that they originally set. They don't sometimes even return capital for the investors. They don't certainly meet the goals that we all would have for ourselves. And so how do we reconcile the two? And the answer to that, and the answer I think your question that you posed, Scott, is to stay attached to the problem that you're trying to solve, but be unbelievably flexible in the solutions to solve that problem. So most of you have this really innate sense of this problem that if we solve, and if you solve it really well, will be meaningful to a lot of consumers, a lot of businesses, and create a really big business. And don't let people sway you from that problem, because that's probably what you have to stay attached to. But many of us get too caught up that there's a specific lane or methodology to do that. And we put our head in the sand, and we don't look at real signals telling us that this isn't the way to solve that problem. This isn't the way that we're going to be able to build something, that's really big and massive. And so, the biggest thing I can also share is that, especially in venture-backed businesses, certain things tend to kind of work right away. And then the things that are working, you want to lean in and really double down on. And one of my early investors told me, it's not that most businesses don't find things that are working. It's that they gloss over what is working and don't drill down in far enough. And so if you're getting signals that something's just a zero, there's nothing there, don't keep running your head into that brick wall trying to solve it. Where you are seeing success, don't go do 2 or 3 other things. Just stay maniacally focused on how you solve that one issue. And the biggest thing I can tell you is, you all know the Pareto principle, that 20% of what we do leads to 80% of our results. In the seed stage that you're all in right now, it's one thing that you're going to do is going to lead to 95% of your results. So the challenge for each of us is to identify the single most important thing that you can do each day, each week, each month that will most move your business forward, and stay maniacally focused on that item, and not to get caught up in the endless list of stuff to do, which is always in front of us. And the entrepreneur that has that discipline and that focus, she's the one that, you know, is so much more likely to break out of the pack than, you know, everyone else that just puts themselves in the arena.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that. Let's zoom forward to at least your end of the entrepreneurial experience. I'm going to ask you 2 questions at one time so that you can sort of give experiential support to the entrepreneurs. So you had a great outcome with DocStock. You sold it to Intuit. It was a really great transaction. You did well. So tell me a little bit about how it just sort of feels personally to kind of nurture something along, have it be successful, and then you turn it over to somebody else. Like, I can imagine it's a bag of mixed emotions, you know, some pride, some gratitude, maybe some relief, maybe even some regret. And then the fundamental question to answer that is, like, what can people expect when they do that? Like, it's a really, really rare occasion when people sell, get a bag of money and leave. You're selling, but really it means your job's changing. You're got to continue on. So what was that like for you at Intuit, and how should people be thinking about that?
Yeah, so that's a lot of really valuable questions all in one. And I'll probably try to address this a lot more personally, you know, from an emotional standpoint. You know, first off, running a venture-backed business is unbelievably lonely. And even if you've got co-founders, you know, most of you are going to probably be the lead, and whoever is the CEO and running that business, it is a lonely experience. And I really encourage you to form as close relationships with other founders and CEOs, because I think you will find in those group of folks a real empathy for what you're going through. And honestly, there's going to be a lot of things you can't go to your team about, maybe even your investors. And so you're going to want this, you know, outside safe network of people that have no judgment and stake in your business other than to listen and share each other's experience. In my case, the overwhelming feeling when we sold DocStock was relief. It wasn't elation, it wasn't joy, it wasn't happiness. It was certainly a very meaningful financial outcome for me. We had only raised $4 million. And so, you know, in our case, you know, it's not like we sold for $1 billion, but what we sold for was a really meaningful for everybody involved, because we hadn't raised that much capital. And, you know, I had the weight of the world on my shoulder for 8 years. And that metaphorical weight turned into literal weight. When I started the company, I was 175 pounds. At my peak, I probably got to 230 pounds. And I took on this pressure that under no circumstance could I fail. And the fact of the matter is, I actually think some of the most successful people are even more motivated by a fear of failure than they are by a desire for success. Now, that said, a fear of failure creates all sorts of different, like, psychological issues and emotions. And those 8 years that I ran DocStock were not the happiest years of my life. They were the most purposeful. They were the ones where I learned the most, where I grew the most. I certainly didn't have any balance in my life. I was literally working 13, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that's not an exaggeration or hyperbole. I would get to the office at 9 or 10 o'clock and I wouldn't leave until 1 a.m. And I did that for 5, 6 years. And even when I slowed down, it wasn't that much. And, you know, so for me, the overwhelming emotion was relief. And I think you'll find it's a very common theme with a lot of folks, is that they're just so glad that they didn't let down their own employees, their investors, you know, and then later on, you feel like you can enjoy a little bit more of the spoils of what you accomplished. How it felt afterwards, it's always weird to turn over your business. I don't know any entrepreneur that sold their business, whether it was for $100 million or $5 billion, that didn't afterwards feel like they sold too soon. And I certainly regret, if we had waited just another year before we sold a DocStock, I easily could have made double the amount of money. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20. And I often try to coach entrepreneurs, you know, when you can take some chips off the table, whether it's in a secondary financing, whether it's in a sale, you know, if it's going to be really meaningful for your life and you're going to do right by your investors and all your stakeholders, like, really consider it, because we all want to create these multi-billion-dollar outcomes, but, you know, not everyone gets an opportunity to, or that the outside world and the timing and luck, a lot of things have to conspire just right to make that happen. You know, the last thing that I'll say is it took me about 5 years into DocStock to start to get more like emotionally healthy. And I remember I took my first vacation ever. I was in Israel by myself, and I remember asking myself this question: how do you want to feel, Jason, when hopefully this business is sold successfully? And then I asked myself a follow-up question, which is, well, can you give yourself permission now, before you've accomplished that, to feel as much of that feeling as possible? And going through that actually provided me a bit of a release valve. And it wasn't like I was totally there, but you know, everything we do in life is to create a feeling, and we think that we sometimes have to achieve 2 or 3 or 4 things before we can let ourselves feel a feeling. But many times, if we just choose to feel that feeling before those things are accomplished, we can still have a good portion of what we're hoping for. And so that for me was a really important time in that 8-year journey that just let me kind of take a deep breath and say, okay, I got to enjoy a little bit more of this process along the way, because not everything can be 110% delayed gratification.
So great. Thank you. So you're a serial entrepreneur. I think every entrepreneur thinks, expects, hopes that they're going to be a serial entrepreneur. Now you're doing Comparably, another great company, doing really well. Tell us a little bit about how that process is to transition from, you know, you go through building a company, you have great success, now you think of a new idea. What led to that new idea? How did that come about? And what's that process like going through that transition?
Yeah, it's definitely very different the second time around, because you have all these battle scars. And the truth of the matter is, I have a lot less energy today at 42 than I did at 27. You know, and I'm surprised my 3-year-old hasn't kind of busted in here. He ran in the door right before this presentation. So there's some folks trying to hold him at bay. You may get a guest appearance by Alexander. And, you know, I think what you try to do is, as you have more and more years behind you, is to, you know, use the wisdom and experience you have to get more done more efficiently. But there's just a certain energy and enthusiasm that comes with youth. And that, you know, putting yourself in the arena early on. And that's really valuable as well too. In my case, you know, I was not a good culture leader early on in my career as a manager at DocStock. I didn't really think about culture. I didn't think about the importance of it. I just thought, hey, we all got to work hard and have integrity, and things will work out in the long run. But it's more complex than that. And I really did a 180 on the importance of culture and how much it could drive business results. And so that was my starting thesis. Obviously, I had built a business already that was in the user-generated content space. It was about transparency. I had felt like sites like Glassdoor were really important, but they also became venting grounds for angry ex-employees. So we just set out to build a more thoughtful employee review platform that would showcase what kind of experience women were having and people of color, and build more tools for companies to help market their talent brand and help them, you know, really have a fair and accurate reputation. And this business has evolved a lot too. If you look at what we started at versus what we are today, the mission is still there, but again, the paths that we take to execute the business are very different. And, you know, one of the big things for me was I had just gotten married when I sold DocStock. We didn't have any kids yet. So I only stayed into it a year. And in hindsight, I could have probably learned a lot and made a lot more money in the short term, staying there longer and getting to be, you know, one of their C-level execs. But I felt like I got to put myself back in the arena one more time to take a big shot, because I kind of knew that once kids were in my life, I would want to spend a lot of my time raising my children and being there for them. And so for me, it was an issue of timing, that I want to really take another stab at a big startup and venture-backed business before I really want to make the next phase of my life being a full-time father and giving most of my energy on a daily basis to my kids.
So if you're an entrepreneur, don't have kids. I'm kidding.
No, and a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs have, you know, amazing family life. You know, I often say you get two things. You can have your startup and one other big thing. So you can have your startup and your family. You can have your startup and friends. You can have your startup and work out a lot. But you don't get to have it all in the short term. Like, I don't know anybody that is putting their kids to bed every night at 5 o'clock and spending lots of time with their friends and working out really well and getting to travel, and that just doesn't work. Like, we give up in the short term, 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of the balance in our life, so that in the long run we can have more balance, that we can have more financial freedom, that we can have more ability to give back to our community and to our family and to the folks that come after us. And I think, you know, maybe I'm a little old school about this, but I think there's too much belief today with people that are in their 30s and 20s that, like, you can kind of have it all right now. And you can have it all, but you can't have your cake and eat it too, like, before you've put in your dues, you know. And to think that you can, it's just a recipe for disaster. Like, still the absolute most successful people that I know have one consistent quality, which is they work harder than anybody else. And I think it's really important that if any of us want to put ourselves in the arena to be entrepreneurs, you have to value that in yourself. You have to have that competitive spirit that no matter what, no one is going to outwork me. And I think you have to want to build a company early on where that is part of the ethos. Now, I take that with a grain of salt. There may be lots of people that, you know, give you a different point of view, but that's my worldview. And for now, I'm sticking to it.
Great transition into the last topic I want to talk to you about. So you mentioned one other big thing in your life. You mentioned life balance. I think it's super important that successful people take the time to give back and work hard in the ecosystem that helps build them and helps support them, and, you know, give back to the community. You're very generous with your time. You know, you're a fixture on the internet in terms of your speaking appearances, doing things like this with me, which I appreciate. You know, you did, I remember those amazing fireside chats you used to do back in the day at the Fairmont. You are the creator and host of Startups Uncensored, which is an incredible and widely attended technology gathering place that's also now becoming rapidly a fixture in Southern California in the ecosystem. Tell us about why you give so much, what inspired you to do Startups International, and then I'll have a follow-up question for you.
Yeah, and we've evolved that event now to where it's, you know, obviously we're not getting people to, you know, 500 or 600 people together in a physical space in Santa Monica anymore. So now I do this interview series on entrepreneur.com. It's mostly with CEOs of high profile companies and public companies, but it's an event that's, you know, open to anybody, and I hope all of you join there. I think every other week we do them. You know, my point of view on this, Scott, has always been that there's been so many, like, I really think all of us have won the lottery of life. Like, just the fact that we're born in the time that we are, and that we're healthy, and for those of us that got, you know, any kind of good education, you know, right there, 90% of the world would trade places with us. And then if you layer on probably a lot of other advantages that many of us had, and I know that I had, you know, 99.5% of the world would trade places. And I definitely think we all play the biggest part in our own success. Like, I really do believe that we can drive a lot of our own destiny, but luck and fate have a lot to do with it also. And so, I don't know, why have I been more lucky? Why do I not have health issues when other people do? Why was I born in Los Angeles? You know, why were my parents able to, you know, help support me in a way that I got to go to great universities? Like, why did I have the opportunity to meet really successful people who ran businesses that wanted to then support me the first time I went to go raise money? And I just think that being grateful is a huge part of both selfishly enjoying life, but really the responsibility of all of us. And I think being grateful then to me extends to, like, well, I'm going to do everything I can to help other folks out. So, you know, whether that means I'm going to take on a role like the entrepreneur in residence for the city of LA and just spend my time trying to, you know, help out the community, or whether I'm going to try to pass on the lessons that I've been learning. You know, if I can end each week saying, hey, there's something that I did to meaningfully help a group of people, you know, achieve their dreams, then the fact of the matter is, you know, I feel better about who I am and what I'm doing in this world. And I had, you know, 2 amazing parents, and part of the ethos of, you know, my mom was to always give back. I watched her so selflessly help so many people, and, you know, she was a really amazing example for me. And, you know, it's a joy. It's harder as I get older, because again, you know, I have 2 little kids now, and I always really just want to be with them. So, you know, even before COVID, I was going to a lot less events. I was a lot less active on social media. I wanted my energy to go to them, but I try to do as much as I can, especially for other entrepreneurs, because I know how hard it is. And I know how easy it is to get, to feel like the world is not in your corner. And there were a lot of people that have done a lot to support me. And I just want to be, you know, one part of that, paying it forward for lots of other amazing people.
Okay, final question, and then maybe we'll take a couple from the people on Zoom. We're in this pandemic. The world's like totally crazy different. I just like to ask a lot of people this question to get a broad perspective, especially from people who I respect so much. So how's the pandemic affected the things that you're doing, the startups, Uncensored in particular, and what do you think the new normal looks like when we get on the other side?
It's a great question. It's one I've been asking lots of people, Scott, and I think we're trying to figure it out. I think we're going through probably the most transformational time in most of our lives. You know, I didn't live through the 60s. I think if somebody did, you know, that's probably the last time there was this much change so rapidly. But I think if you look at the pace of change technologically, culturally, if you look at what's, you know, happening just across the board, like politically, we're going through so much change so rapidly. And I think what COVID gave an opportunity for is really to kind of reset. And for me, I just kind of looked at everything in my life and business and said, okay, well, I'm going to look at this as a blank slate, and I'm going to pick and choose what I want to keep doing, and I'm going to try to take off of this plate the things that I don't think I need to be doing. And this is actually, I think, an incredible time to start a company. It's a harder time, but it creates a lot more opportunity, because when there's uncertainty, it actually creates the opportunity for arbitrage. Like when everything is just working at perfect scale, the advantage always goes to people with the most resources. It's when things are uncertain, it's when things are unpredictable, that the underdog gets to come in and make their way in the world with a little bit more, you know, ability than if something is just completely set. And so I actually think this is one of the best times that you could start a company. You know, I started DocStock right before the crash of 2008, when there was this presentation going around, it's the end of the world and venture capital. And we saw our way through that, and we built the discipline of being a profitable company. And because of that, we never raised more than $4 million. I had all the money I raised in the bank when I sold the company. And that's why it was in part a really meaningful event for so many folks. And so I think I would just use this as an opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, there may be some new rules here. Now, I don't think we're going back to the normal that we lived before. And I think there's going to be a lot of things that change. I think we're going to see in the short term an increase, honestly, in crime. I think we are going to see probably in the next year some kind of more meaningful correction in the public markets that didn't last as short as it did this first time. I think that we are going to see a lot of pushback against technology and how quickly it's advancing, which we already see in so many areas. You know, there, like, if you just look at like one specific thing, like we're so close to like something like deep fakes being pervasive, and we're not ready as a society to manage and prepare for how we're going to work our way through that, let alone the numerous number of like biological issues that we're going to have of like, you know, being able to make certain people are healthier before they're even born. And so I think this is a time where it's like, be prepared for more change than we've ever experienced in our lives. And I think that's where the really successful entrepreneurs thrive. What at the heart of it, I think what other than this work ethic thing I was talking about, but the defining characteristic of successful entrepreneurs is that they thrive in an environment of something that's unknown. You know, and I'm going to go back to your first question. In my experience, it's actually been, you know, like my classmates in business school and law school that were the C students are the ones that are literally now worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, and they employ the A students. And people that had a lot of success scholastically and went to like really pedigreed schools, they got used to assuming there was always an answer for something and that they just needed the best at solving that answer and doing it faster and better than other people. But the worldview of an entrepreneur is that like, hey, there aren't just one set of rules. Not everything's meant to be solved. I got to find my own way in this world. And hopefully we all try to do it with as much ethics, you know, and high standards as possible. But those are the folks that, especially in times of unprecedented change, which I think we're going to go through, end up thriving in the long run. And so I think if each of us prepare ourselves for that and think that way, we're going to be more successful over the next 5-10 years than people that want predictability, you know, in their work life and in their personal life.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I mean, change provides opportunity to solve problems and provides entrepreneurialism. The only thing I don't like about that answer, Jason, is that I was the A student. So it's not working out for me the way it worked out for you. Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time and spending with us. I think if you can stick around for just a couple more minutes, we have a few questions. So let me just look at the monitor here and fire some off at you. So here's one. So how... what's that? Oh, these are old questions. Okay, so anybody who has a question, they should type them into the queue from everyone, and I will fire them over here at Jason. Nothing yet. Nobody has a question.
You asked such good questions, Scott, that no one's left with anything.
Well, I'm sure that there'll be one or two coming in. Let's just wait a minute for someone to type them.
Jason, while we're waiting, first of all, thank you very much for being part of our program today. I really do appreciate it, and it's been fun to watch you over the past dozen years change and grow and do great things and really help our community. Silicon Beach, as we know it today, has morphed over the past dozen years. Do you see Los Angeles continuing to be a hotbed of innovation and for tech as it has grown into?
I think we're going to see even more of it because what you're seeing with COVID is people moving from San Francisco down to LA because it's a better quality of life. And, you know, I think it'll also work the other way. I think you'll have LA entrepreneurs that realize like, okay, I can, you know, live a great life in, you know, Colorado or in Wisconsin, where I can own 10 acres of land for what I might have to pay, you know, for a 3-bedroom apartment in Brentwood. But I think in the short term, you're actually going to see a lot of talent move from the Bay Area to Los Angeles, where I think it's just, you know, immediately a better quality of life.
And the follow-up was a question that Vince Arena asked, and it dovetails right into your answer. What is it about the LA ecosystem that's unique for startups that we should be taking advantage, that we should take advantage of? Is there anything
I would say the biggest, like one of the biggest things is that it's not this myopic community just about startups. You know, I fell in love with San Francisco in 2007, and it was a magical place. But I really came to really not like it a lot over the years because it became so singly focused just about tech. And that's one of the biggest complaints. There was no culture or arts in the city. And I think a lot of what happens is you're just in your own petri dish and you're not seeing the broader world and having more conversations. I think you've got the best engineering schools down here, you know, all within a couple miles of each other. You've got access to all this incredible talent. You've got companies that have gone public that have sold for multiple billions of dollars. You have major, you know, tech companies like Netflix and Amazon that are now headquartering down here in Los Angeles. all that said, you know, I've never been someone that feels a need to say like, oh, LA is the best place for tech versus New York or San Francisco or Paris. I mean, your customers, your users do not care where you're based. All they care about is that you build a great product that meaningfully helps them in their life and in their business. And if you do that, then they'll love you for it, regardless of wherever you're headquartered. And so, you know, we all naturally want to make teams of where we are. I think that's a very human thing, like we're tribalistic. But to me, I just never want to lose focus that my first priority, my first goal is not to my LA tech community, it's to the people that I'm building the products for. Because if I serve them well, and if we help them with their needs, then we will become successful and we'll be able to give back to our local community. And if we don't serve their needs, then we'll never be able to help our local community at the size and scale that I'd want to.
Excellent. Scott, there's a couple more questions if you want to ask them.
Yeah, Asher's got a good question here. Thanks, Asher. So what areas do you think are the most ripe for disruption right now? What's your perspective?
So maybe I'll answer a little bit differently. Instead of disruption, I'll just say like, what are the categories that I think I'd be most excited about? I think voice as an operating system is really huge. So I think, you know, if you look at like Alexa and Amazon Play and everything there, that's obviously something really big. I think that I've been personally really fascinated by distribution of other platforms. So like I'm investing a lot as like a individual investor in like Slack. So I think building apps for Slack and Microsoft Teams, you know, I was an early advisor in Honey, and nobody thought a company that was a Chrome extension could ever be anything big. And I would put them in touch with all these different investors here in town, and multiple folks passed because of that. And they had the single largest exit in Los Angeles, you know, selling a company for $4 billion. And so, you know, I think sometimes people are getting too caught up on what something looks like at the surface versus the value that it drives. I certainly think anything artificial intelligence is huge. I was just talking to my friend the other day that like, I want to start or buy a business that helps counteract deep fakes. I mean, literally, as big as cybersecurity is, people are going to need to spend billions and billions of dollars being able to identify when something's a deep fake. So I just bring that up because it was top of mind of what I was talking about before. I think transportation is a massive sector that you're going to see go through a lot of change this next 10 years as we do move to both fully electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, other modes of transportation, how that interacts with, you know, obviously climate change and our, you know, need to improve the environment. I think less about like, hey, what's an industry that's meant to be disrupted versus, you know, what's just the business that you're really excited and passionate about that has a really big ceiling. And one other big piece of advice I'll really try to give you all is, you know, make sure you're playing on the right field for you. And what I mean about that is like, if each of us are honest with ourselves, we have a set of skills and talents that we do really well, and we have other things we don't do well. And what you want to do is you want to play a game. You want to start a business that really works to your best talents. You know, if you're someone that's short and fast and got strong legs, you don't want to be playing basketball, you want to be playing soccer. And I think the mistake that a lot of us make is that we don't do enough combination of our unique skill sets and the skill sets of the early teams we can build to the field that we're playing on, which is the business that we choose to start and the industry we're in and how we're going to get customers. And the more that any of us can align those things together, the more we have a competitive advantage that conspires for our success.
Okay, maybe one last question here. I think this is a good thought from Royce. I'm going to ask the question slightly differently, but what factors would you think about as an entrepreneur to move maybe towards partnering with a strategic partner in your arena as opposed to going out and trying to raise financing from an angel to get to the same place?
A strategic partner is in almost all cases going to be more slow. So I think if you can get a strategic partner that can make some commitment, whether it's you know, an LOI to do a deal together, making a very small investment, doing some kind of BD deal, you can often leverage that as credibility to go raise, you know, your first $500,000, million, $2 million, $3 million. And, you know, in our case, we did take on strategic investors. Like the seed round that I raised for Comparably was a $6.5 million seed round when we didn't have anything. I didn't even have a deck. I just said, hey, you know, I'm ready to start the next business. And we brought in, for example, Cornerstone and Demand as a seed investor in that round. And then Adam Miller, who was the founder and CEO for many years, is now on our board. But if I had tried to, you know, just do a big strategic deal with them, I would have slowed it down. Like I just kept the train moving forward to raise money and then brought them in. And so, again, going back to this theme that we talked about earlier, speed, speed, speed. You have to move quickly. And so if you can close something with a strategic partner fast, and then that creates more credibility so that it helps you raise more money more quickly than you could otherwise, yes. But at the stage that many of you are in, you just got to solve for what gets you into the market, what gets your product in front of people, what gets you feedback, what gets you more employees, what gets you enough growth. I mean, the fact of the matter is most of us are in the business of raising our next round of capital. I hope that a lot of you can put a product out of market, become wildly profitable, and grow that off your profits, and then just have the choice of whether you want to raise money or not. Most of us, 9 out of 10 who start a venture-backed business, as soon as you raise money, you're going to need more capital to get to where you really want to go, and you may need 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 more rounds. And so the thing that people miss is even once you raise money, you're just in the business of raising your next round of capital. And so what you need to do is be maniacally focused on those set of metrics that you got to solve for in 6, 12, 18 months, then get you to that next round to keep growing as fast as you want. And I say that because if bringing in a strategic relationship, partner, investor, business deal is what helps you move as quickly as you need to do, then yes, focus on it. But and I'd probably say more times than not, it's going to slow down your process early on. Now, if you genuinely don't have the ability to raise capital for any number of reasons, or the amount of capital you need, and you feel like you got to spend more time trying to get a strategic partner involved, because again, that will provide either distribution of the credibility to raise more capital, then that may change the analysis a little bit. But strategics are most often going to be the absolute slowest, longest relationships to build. It's a lot faster to get somebody to say, hey, I'm going to give you $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, have $1 million or $2 million in your bank account, and just be able to go at the pace that you need to.
Great. Well, I apologize to those of you who have got some other questions rolling in, but I want to be respectful to everybody's time. Jason, buddy, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me this afternoon. I think it's been invaluable to everybody. Great connecting with you again. And that's going to be the end of our program. Len, I'll turn it back over to you if you have any wrapping up comments.
All right. Hey, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate the energy that you and Jason put into this. Jason, as always, we're neighbors. We're right next door to each other here on the promenade. So please stop in anytime as you're going by. I'm here Monday through Friday, pretty much from 9 to 6. So love to have you stop in. To Vincent, to Bennett and Tanya, to Obi, and to Melissa, thank you so much for your brilliant presentations today. You did an outstanding job. To our investor partners that are on the call today, thank you for coming and spending time. These are great companies. We have more in the hopper, and we look forward to engaging with you as often as we can. And to all of our mentors and people who have come today to see our demo today, please, thank you. If you have great ideas, apply to us. We want to see more deal flow here from Southern California. We want to see good tech, and we want to see good founders, so we can invest in you and make you become the next DocStock, the next Comparably, the next Honey, the next Cornerstone on Demand, and the list goes on and on and on. So thank you all for your attention today. I look forward to the next time we're all able to get together. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank Thanks, Jason.